Well, hello. We're back. Oh, this is wonderful. Uh it's been a little while since we've done a late night coffee talk, and I'm excited that we're back. Hello. Oh, this is going to be a blast tonight. Well, folks, let me just go ahead and tell you, I have missed this greatly, but I'm sure you're probably pretty aware. There's a good reason why we have not been doing our weekly coffee talks, and I think you might know what the answer to that is. Perhaps, perhaps, uh, maybe you do. I don't know. Yeah, I'm seeing you. I'm seeing folks over here in the chat. Howdy, everyone. So good to see you. Wow. All right. So look, I am not going to belabor this point, right? We're just gonna get into it like we never stopped doing it, and we're gonna talk about the Texas petition. So first and foremost, welcome to Late Night Coffee Talk. This is a thing that we generally, until a couple months ago, were doing pretty regularly, mostly weekly, sometimes every other week, just depending on the travel schedule. But all of a sudden, it just sort of stopped for a while, and we were super busy. Again, not going to belabor that point, but what we're here for tonight is very special late night coffee talk, right? Where I grab a cup of coffee, we talk about the things that are going on, and I answer your questions. Yeah, I'm super accessible. It's not like you got to hunt me down, right? But that being said, for those of you that are brand new, I'm Daniel Miller, president of the Texas Nationalist Movement, and this is time for our regular decompress. I think I can safely say that it will be regular. So, that being said, let's get some of the housekeeping out of the way before I tear off into your questions and talk about kind of where things are with the TEXIT campaign, the petition, what's next, answer some of your questions. I know there are plenty because when the email went out today, here they came into the inbox, and we'll talk about that here in a bit. But anyway, if you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. Also, chat is active, so be sure to head over there to chat. Say hello to your fellow Texians. I am monitoring as best I can, but I think we'll get this squared away. All right. Additionally, if you're watching on Facebook, be sure to like, share, and comment. Again, all of these things help us get squared away with the algorithm. And of course, we are live on Twitter right now. So hello to, or X, excuse me. No, don't send me any nasty grams about the name change. Let's be honest. If you have to put X and then in parentheses, formerly known as Twitter, you might as well just call it Twitter until you drop the information in the parentheses, right? Whoo! I'm over the moon. Can you tell? Oh, and by the way, some of you may be watching on the TNM news site, and I will say no more. But some of you might be. Okay. Since we were last together, there has been an awful lot happen. I mean, obviously, you guys saw the launch of the brand new news website. If you go to news.tnm.me, you'll see it there, where we are just jam packing it with as much information as possible, plus a ton of archival material that's never been available really anywhere. In addition to that, we launched our brand new membership structure. So if you would like to find out what that's all about, go to tnm.me/join, and you can see what's going on over there. Trying to make it so much easier for people in this economy, right? To make it easier to budget for your membership, give you an opportunity to show support. Plus, we're throwing in a ton of brand new perks. Additionally, we launched a brand new donor and giving management portal. If you've gone to make a donation anytime recently, you will have seen it. It's been a labor, right? I mean, there's a lot of things. Brand new store. Don't know. I know some of you have gone over there and looked. We didn't put out big announcements about these because, frankly, we've been focused on the biggest news that's happening, and that was getting this petition across the finish line. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight, right? We're going to get realistic about some things. We're going to remind you guys of some things that we talked about back when we launched the petition campaign in June. And we're going to lay out what it looks like moving forward for this campaign. But before I get into any of that great news, I do want to take an opportunity and ask every one of you to take a moment and pray for our executive director, Nate Smith, and his family. We came back off of that SREC meeting over the weekend, and Monday morning, Nate lost his dad, Michael Smith. And Michael, many of you that have been around in the TNM for a long time know Michael. You have seen him at our events. You've worked alongside of him. You volunteered with him. He helped collect petition signatures. And as a matter of fact, petition campaign last time, he was actually the petition coordinator. So I've known Nate's dad for more years than I can count. He is loved by his TNM family, and he is going to be sorely, sorely missed. I got to spend some time with Michael and Nate's mom Nancy at the TEXIT conference, where they were there volunteering to help out put that conference on for everyone. And it's never a good time, but it's a particularly tough time for Nate and for the team because we're in the final days of getting this petition across the finish line, perhaps one of the most major undertakings that we've ever done as an organization, and perhaps one of the biggest successes that show our ability to get out there and get the job done. And so, Nate, we love you. We love your family. We absolutely love your dad, Michael. And we're all going to miss him, buddy. So I have to prelude the discussion about this petition with understanding my comments tonight will be probably a little not clouded, but a little bit contextualized by the fact that we've got yet another phenomenal hero in the TNM that is not going to make it across the finish line with us. It's been a very tough year for us here at the TNM. We've lost people. We had one of our supporters had an out of the blue heart issue at the TEXIT conference, and Kara just got word. Think about how long that's been. Just got word that he is in the hospital and scheduled for a heart transplant tomorrow. So, I mean, with that and with Dan, so my comments tonight are going to be that they're going to be buffered. I mean, they're colored by that thought that happens every time we lose someone. That we have all got to do everything we can to put the pedal to the metal and get this thing across the finish line and get the job done. We don't want to lose more people before we get the job done, before we see independence. Look, I've always said I would be happy. I just want to draw one breath in an independent Texas, and that I'd be a happy man, right? That's all it takes for me. I'm very simple that way, but it's going to be a doozy tonight. So we did start, for those of you who watch Late Night Coffee Talk, the normal time is 9 p.m., but we kicked off tonight at 8 o'clock because I wanted a little extra overtime, right? If you guys had some pretty in-depth questions, had some things that you wanted to talk about, or took a little more time to unpack some of these things than we had in that hour, I wanted to give it as much time as necessary. You're basically, I'm here until the coffee runs out. or the questions run out. So grab your favorite cup and let's get started. All right. Let's talk about this. Obviously, the big news that came out over the weekend was that we announced to the world, really to the State Republican Executive Committee, that we had more than enough signatures on the TEXIT petition to put it on the Republican primary ballot. And of course, that was the big news. But a lot of people kind of just found out about the petition then, which is sad, right? I mean, it just means that in those 180 days, we were not able to reach you. But also there is a lot of information flying around about what it is and what it's not, and and a lot of it is just simply inaccurate. So we're going to go to the beginning. We're going to go all the way back into Mr. Peabody's Wayback Machine, excuse me, to give you the most complete picture possible. Okay, now I am not going to start tonight back at the foundation of the TNM. If you are that new, go look at our website, go to the About page, go look through the news, go do all that sort of stuff. Okay, so but let's go back to 2015. Okay, so prior to 2015, we had done petitions, but none like the ones that we're talking about tonight. Right? They were basically voter engagement petitions that we would utilize to show elected officials support and let them know that there was support out there to have a referendum on independence. Okay, but in 2015, we were introduced to a little known section of the election code, 172.088. If you want to look it up, maybe somebody will type it in the chat there. And by the way, you can find this all out, what I'm telling you right here, or at least a good bit of it, on the TEXIT petition page on the website. So if you go to tnm.me/petition, you'll see some of this information there, but I'm just going to give you the high points. So essentially, because Texas is not an initiative and referendum state, right? It's not classified as one, in the sense that citizens cannot, in general, by petition, place a question, so any sort of binding question, on a general election ballot. Just, it doesn't exist. Texas is not one of those. There are a lot of states that do it. Texas is not one of them. Okay. There are some limited exceptions on citizen initiative, mostly on the local level. As a matter of fact, many cities here in Texas have it as part of their charter that that citizens can essentially get an ordinance passed by petition. They petition, it goes in front of the council. The council, if they approve it, then it doesn't have to go to the voters. If they don't, it goes to the voters, and the voters get to vote on it, right? So local. The only statewide exception for this is found in 172.088, and it is very limited. It is very weird, I admit, but actually has a tremendous amount of power, and it allows citizens like us, registered voters, by petition to place a question on a party's primary ballot. Okay, so what that means is, if you have an issue that you would like to bring more attention to, get questions answered, whatever it is, you can, if you collect a requisite number of signatures, force the issue on the primary ballot for whatever political party you petition. Okay, so for example, when we launched the petition campaign the first time in 2015, we did the assessment and we looked and said the Republican Party has majorities in both houses. They own every statewide office. They are the dominant political party. We saw in 2014 in the Reuters Ipsos poll, right around the time of the Scottish independence referendum, that support among Republican voters was above a majority. It was at 54%. So even well within the margin of error, it was over 50%. So we made a conscious decision. We said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go out and we're going to try to get this petition across the finish line. and place it on the Republican primary ballot. Now, some people say, well, what does that do for us practically? Well, I want you to go, and I'm not going to cover this in depth tonight, but if you go back and you listen to the Texas News podcast, and for those of you who don't know, since we were last together, we've actually launched a weekly podcast called Texas News with some great guests. But I had Dr. Matt Quartrip on. You guys saw him on a live stream here before, probably. But we actually, on the podcast, had a discussion about this. And in an international context, you would refer to these as advisory referendums, right? In other words, you take the temperature, you get the voters to vote, and then what it does is it serves as sort of a motivation for policy or a policy direction. Those are advisory. And in fact, it's interesting because Dr. Quartrip argued that even the Scottish independence referendum and the Brexit referendum were, in effect, advisory. And so you have these people talking about these referendums. Well, is it binding or non-binding? Well, that's not the question you should be asking, right? The question you should be asking is what does it do? What happens after the vote, right? If it comes back in the affirmative or the negative, what happens next? Okay. And you see this. If you look at the Texas Independence Referendum Act, the piece of legislation that we've had filed twice so far, you will see that it's not just a vote. There is something that comes after it. Some people say, well, is that a binding referendum or a non-binding referendum? Well, those terms aren't really relevant to this, right? What does that mean, binding or non-binding? Because in effect, any independence referendum, whether it's advisory or not, while in some instances may not be legally binding, right? In other words, there is no legal compulsion to do something. It is politically binding, right? So when you have this outcry, this swell of support, particularly on a fundamental issue of governance, these things are legally binding. And that's, that was the distinction that Dr. Quartrip was making, was that, yeah, it may not be, legally binding, but it is politically binding. And politically binding is ultimately what you want, because all political power is inherent in the people. If it essentially creates the framework for political discourse moving in a certain direction, then where it leads next is just inevitably forward, right? That's just where it goes. It's got the momentum to push it forward. And that's ultimately what you want, because remember, TEXIT is not the goal. Independence is the goal. TEXIT is the process that gets us to our goal. Okay? So working it backwards. So 2015, excuse me. So 2015, we launched the petition campaign, but in December of 2015, we actually had a member of the state Republican Executive Committee introduce the same question that we're asking on the petition into the ballot proposition. So let me explain that for those who don't understand. Every 2 years, when the parties have their primaries, their executive committees have the ability to list ballot propositions, questions that they want to ask the voters. And normally the executive committee, they'll go through resolutions, they'll pick out a handful, they will jam them in there, and those are the questions they ask. And so, for example, in the last one, I think there was one about, 2 years ago was about property tax. I can't even remember what the 9 or 10 were last election cycle, but they do it every primary, and it basically, well, I don't know why they do it. I could talk about that at length too, because that's a bit of a criticism that I've got from what I heard over the weekend. But it made it out of Resolutions Committee in 2015, went to the floor of the SREC, and was soundly voted down. And of course, alas, because it was our first attempt to really do this petition campaign, we did not get it across the finish line. But the interesting thing about it was that no one's ever gotten it across the finish line. No one has ever collected the requisite number of signatures to actually utilize this provision of the code. No one has ever done it. As far as we can tell, no one's ever tried to, right? So this is brand new territory for everyone else. And there we were in 2015 as the TNM, on the cutting edge, breaking ground. I mean, just plowing in there, doing things that no one thought we could do or no one had ever done. It's not unusual for us. But that being said, we spun it up again the next time, right? So 2 years from this, that was 2017. We did not, let's see, we did 2017, we did it 2019, and then, no, we did it 2015, 2017. We did not do 2019. We did 2021, and now 2023. So this is effectively our fourth bite at the apple, okay, to get the petition campaign done. And for anyone out there thinking, well, you know, it should be so easy, you don't know what you're talking about. I mean, I don't have the thing on here that where I could tell you that you're wrong. But if you think it's easy, then you don't know what you're talking about. You've never done one of these. You know, when every 2 years you launch a petition campaign and it's 5% of the number of votes that all gubernatorial candidates got in that primary. I mean, that's a lot of daggum signatures. I mean, it's a lot, right? Our up went, I think, in 2015, it was like 70 some odd thousand. And this go around, it was 97,709. That was the statutory minimum. Okay. So anyway, sorry, I just happened to glance over at chat. It tells me I get distracted very easily. So we've done this. And since then, the sentiment for this, the movement has grown. You know, we were 250,000 people back then. We're over 600,000 now. You know, we had nothing back then. We got shut down at the 2016 convention by parliamentary shenanigans about getting it on the platform. But yet here we are with 2 planks on the Republican Party platform calling on the legislature to give us a TEXIT vote. And so the campaign was launched. And so in June of this year, we launched this petition campaign to essentially do the same thing, to make another run at it. And it's the same place. So the question, I think, every time when we do these is, what are the odds that we're going to cross the finish line, right? What sort of time, what sort of resources do we have? The volunteers? Do we have what it takes to get it across the finish line? And as part of that discussion, I mean, we talked about how we had this growth of supporters, and we've had volunteers, and you know, we talked about some of the problems, some of the things that were problematic. You know, people jamming their hand in the air and then going AWOL. You know, we talked that was discussed, and so we thought, you know, this is we're going to give this another shot. We just feel like we can make this dog hunt. And it's important because I want everyone to understand that if you think the petition campaign is the only thing we do, it's the only thing we ever done, it's the only thing we're doing right now, again, not true, right? The petition is not an end in itself. It's a piece of a much larger strategy to move the ball forward on the TEXIT issue. So here's where it stands. We knew going into this last weekend's state Republican Executive Committee meeting that we had the signatures. We had more than the statutory minimum, right? We knew that we had definitely collected more than that. As a matter of fact, the number that I put in my open letter was a bit of an undercount, right? I don't know if you guys have read that letter, but if you go look on the TNM News website, you can go view that letter in its entirety. But it was a bit of an undercount. I put in there that we had over 102,000. The truth is we had over 103,000 some odd, right? So we were going in there knowing that we had collected more than the minimum, which is great. You know, you're going to have errors. You're going to have people that swore up and down they were registered voters and are not. But generally that number is, you know, especially since we make sure we do a lot of checks. I mean, we can't catch everything, but we do some checks and we flunk some stuff out. But the bottom line is we feel very confident that we have. We know beyond a shadow of doubt, raw counts, that we are so far over the threshold and still going, by the way, that there should be no problems at all. But what we wanted to do at the executive committee meeting this weekend was we wanted to give them an opportunity to do the right thing, right? We wanted to give them an opportunity to, again, place the question on the ballot propositions themselves. Because let's be honest, this is what we've been asking for many, many, many years. We just want it put to a vote. We just want the people of Texas to be asked a question, not in some dippy poll survey. I mean, those are great too if they've got an accurate sample size, but we want the people of Texas to have the opportunity to go into the polling place and vote on this question. You know what? The people of Texas want it too. Do you know the people who don't want to put it on a ballot? The people who don't want to put it on a ballot are the people who know that when it goes on the ballot, it's going to win. Right? Because it destroys their narrative that somehow this idea that Texans are good enough to govern themselves is fringe. That's what they tell people. No one believes in this. It's fringe. I mean, if you saw some of the remarks from the SREC floor, you heard some dipstick get on the microphone and essentially say, oh, well, they just want this because they're not sure of the signatures. Well, first and foremost, I can count. Right, we have the ability to do that, and the second thing is, look, if you're so all fire sure that no one believes in this, right? If you want to look at every piece of evidence that says otherwise, if you still hold firmly to the belief that no one wants Texas to be independent, there is one easy way to figure that out. You put it on the ballot and you let the people of Texas vote. You let them speak. This cancel culture nonsense where they want to put a muzzle on people like us who say we're fed up. We're sick and tired of being spoon-fed crap from Washington, D.C. And we're sick and tired of our politicians here putting some salt and pepper on it to try to make it taste better. Texans just want to be heard. That's what they want. And so if they are indeed sure of their position, then jam it on the ballot. That was the message to the SREC. Because we know that we have crossed the petition threshold. We have collected the requisite number of signatures and lots more. We wanted to save them time and expense of a fight. That's the bottom line. We were being good neighbors. We were being people that just said, look, we know this is weird. We know that no one has ever done this before, where no one has forced you to put something on your ballot. And so we're giving you an opportunity to do it yourselves, to show that you actually give a crap about the right of the people to be heard. And you know what? I mean, some people walked out of that SREC meeting feeling like it was a problem, what they came up with. I didn't. I walked out of there going, okay, I mean, look, we gave them the option. We gave them a choice, which is what we want to give the people of Texas. We want to give them a choice. Right? We gave them a choice and they chose. And as a deliberative body, some people were for it, some people were against it. And I'm going to tell you that vote was close. I mean, it was like within 5 or 6 votes. And they were going to jam that thing on there themselves. And then, we were still going to deliver the petition signatures, but at least it would have been something that they said, okay, look, we're going to put it on here. And they could have looked at the petition and said, okay, cool, but we've already got it on the ballot. And we'd have said, fine. But I think that there is a sense from some people that they still might pull some shenanigans, and it's true, right? I'm not entering into this thing with rose-colored glasses. I believe that there may yet be more fight on this issue. And I hate that. I hate that for the Republican Party of Texas. Because look, we've connected with the top petition and ballot access lawyer in the country, right? And we've already had those conversations. We're going to get ready to litigate, right? That's just the bottom line, and I don't want to do that, right? We gladly sued Facebook and Meta for putting a muzzle on us, right? For muzzling our people. That we went into that battle like happy warriors. I don't want to get into a tussle with the Republican Party of Texas. They've got enough problems on their own. I don't want to be involved in that. What I want to see our people, all people, be able to go into a polling place in March of 2024 and answer a simple question. Should the state of Texas reassert its status as an independent nation? That's the question. And let the debate ensue. Let the pros and cons be discussed. And then let the people make their decision, and they will speak. So, where we are right now is we are in the midst of getting everything together. I mean, you guys may or may not have seen the picture of me sitting in front of all those boxes. That's what's going down right now. Everything is being prepped, not just at one site, but at multiple sites. Excuse me. But at multiple sites. And the reason for that being that we don't trust the opposition. We don't trust that the opposition won't pull some shenanigans and try to keep us from delivering that petition. Man, we got, our plan Bs have plan Bs, Cs, and Ds, right? I mean, that's just how we work. We say it all the time. We got to work twice as hard for half as much. And you know what? That's fine. We're going to get it. We're going to get it. And we're going to win. And we're going to fight this thing out. Look, I said to our folks at that SREC meeting this weekend that we go into these things anticipating we will have to fight every single step of the way. And so people say, well, is it going to be on the ballot? I tell them, well, we did everything we were supposed to do. We've done everything required of us by law. We've done more than any organization has ever done. This has never been done. We've done more than anyone else on this issue. We've poured enormous amounts of time and resources, and volunteers have driven all over Hell's Half Acre, and donors have donated lots to get this thing done. And frankly, we're still going to need more, right? Because if we have to litigate this, we're going to need money to pay the attorneys, right? So the fight is not over. But here's what you can expect scheduling wise. Because and then I'm going to take a break and I'm going to get to some of your questions over here. I'm sure there are some. Well, look at that. There are. So here's what you can expect. December the 11th, by statute, is the deadline for turning in these petition signatures. So expect that on that day, or if not before, we will be at the Republican Party of Texas headquarters on the 7th floor of that building in downtown Austin with boxes and boxes and boxes of petition signatures. I invite Mr. Garcia from the SREC to help us come offload, right? If you want to doubt how many we got, why don't you come give yourself a hernia by helping us hump those boxes up to the 7th floor? It's the way it is. Excuse me. Sorry, guys. The weather's doing weird things, right? So anyway, so that's the next thing that you can expect. Then the next move is on actually the chairman of the Republican Party of Texas, Matt Rinaldi. You see, the petition process is almost exactly the same that they utilize for candidates who file to run for office without paying the filing fee, right? So 2 ways to run for office. under a party banner. You can go and pay your money, or you can do what's called a petition in lieu of the filing fee. And there are, for various offices, different, petition amounts that you have to get. The maximum that you have to get for state senator or state representative, I believe, is just 500 signatures from your district. For statewide, obviously, that goes up, and it is the equivalent of what we're having to do. So that's why I always thought it was interesting that 2 years ago, or the last cycle, when Abbott filed, he paid his fee, but he also turned in petition signatures less than actually what we got during the last petition campaign. So always thought that was pretty nice that Abbott, with all of his money and all of his campaign organization, everything else, couldn't even hit the same number of petition signatures that we could. That's history. So next thing out of the game, it's really in Chairman Matt Rinaldi's hands. He is the sole determining factor. It is given to him in the statute to give it a thumbs up or thumbs down, period. His role, his responsibility, not the SREC, not anyone else. It's up to him. So it's his choice. The next play is his. And then if he comes back and says, okay, you guys, the counts are good, verification's good, rock and roll, see you in March. Guess what? We get to go about our merry way, and they get to go continue to do what they're going to go do, which is get ready for those elections. And then we go, like I said, we go about our merry way. And when I say go about our merry way, I mean that we transition into what's next. You see, because as I said earlier, the petition campaign is not the only campaign, not the only thing that's happening within the TNM. And the petition campaign plays as part of a much larger plan or strategy, and as a matter of fact, many of you actually saw this play out 2 years ago. And here's the thing to remember. The petition goes on the ballot, voter turnout goes way up. Yeah, okay, so what? It's an advisory referendum. It goes way up. How do we know this? Knowledge, data, because we have seen these things happen around the world for the last 100 years. We've seen it happen. And the data show that the average voter turnout for independence referendums worldwide is 85%. Now, granted, that is when everybody gets to vote, but there is reason to believe, strong reason, that something like this on a party's primary ballot could potentially double, if not more, the turnout, the average normal turnout for that election. So what happens when you put double the turnout in a primary election? Well, it changes everything. It changes everything. And what happens if you have, say, I don't know, a bunch of candidates running for the legislature that happen to sign the Texas First Pledge at taketexasback.com that are also on the ballot with that question? Who do you think is going to get the votes of that increased voter turnout? Probably them. And it becomes enough to create wholesale change in the Texas legislature, really from the state house to the schoolhouse, but especially there. And then what happens to our odds of getting the bill filed and getting it through both chambers next time? A massive affirmative vote in the March primary, a slate of new candidates that got elected under the banner of giving the people of Texas a final vote on this issue, everyone. What do you think that does for momentum inside the Texas legislature? I think it puts us on the fast track to getting a binding, final, no longer advisory vote on independence. To start that process, I think it puts the Texas Independence Referendum Act on the fast track to getting done, and then getting Texas that big debate, that big vote that will come back in the affirmative, because we've seen the poll numbers. So it is a piece of the puzzle, the next step. Notice we've never called it a final step. It's the next step. And then it's the next step and the next step and the next step and the next step until we get there. You know, that's why it always drives me nuts that these, you know, these guys that just sort of in the media that just half heard this story. Texas is on the track. Texans vote to secede. I mean, that's not what this is. This is us putting the question on a ballot so the people of Texas can have their voices heard to build the political momentum to get the thing across the finish line. That's what this is. And our success in getting this on the ballot, first off, let me just go ahead and say to our volunteers and to everyone, if you were an activist and you shared the link, or those of you that work those long hours out there at gun shows, fairs, and festivals, and went to your, your churches or your social clubs, or hung out in parking lots and got those signatures. Thank you. Congratulations. This is your victory. You achieved something that no one before in Texas history has done. You've done it. Sure, there have been petition campaigns put independent candidates on the ballot. That's fine. But in this instance, what you did has never been done before. And I have to commend you. And we're going to fight like crazy to make sure that those guys do not steal your victory. I mean, they can't steal your place in history. You've already made it. But we don't want them to deprive all of us of that next step of being able to vote on this in the primaries. All right, man, oh man, let me get to some questions, and then we'll talk about this a little bit more. I've gone on for a good bit. I'm glad to be back. It's a coffee talk, and I've done more talk than coffee, which that's how it works. A reminder: if you're just now joining us, you can drop your questions in the chat on YouTube. Or in the comments on Facebook. Somehow the Twitter/X, whatever you want to call it, doesn't feed them over here. Maybe Elon will add that feature at some point. Hopefully right after he adds a Texas flag emoji, right? But we'll get that squared away. But drop your questions over there. Alternatively, if you look down here at the bottom, there it is right there. Man, I haven't done this in a while. Look at that. coffeetalk@dtnm.org. All right, let me take the ones from online first. And thank you for the super chat, Mr. Milton. He says, what can we do about these SRECs that don't really support the grassroots TEXIT questions? Look, excuse me, I will tell you that I have a very strong opinion about elected folks that do not support your right to vote on independence. Okay, pure Article 1, Section 2. But I have a very strong opinion about that, and my advice to you about those folks is the same as it is with your legislators, right? Any of your legislators that did not jump up to file the Texas Independence Referendum Act or did not sign on to it when Biederman filed it, whatever, if they do not represent you, they cannot represent you, right? That goes for legislators right on down to members of the state Republican Executive Committee. And here's the deal. I understand not everyone on here is a Republican. Not asking you to be. But those of you who are have these people that are called executive committee members in your Senate district and know that they are representing you in Austin, and they represented you this weekend. And the question is, how did they vote? And that actually gets to a question that was sent in by Eric. And by the way, again, Chris, thank you for the $20. We need all the help we can get. This goes to a question that was submitted via email from Eric, and Eric specifically asked why there was not a roll call vote. And frankly, Eric, it's because no one called for one. And I know I could have, because for those of you who don't know, if you've seen the video of me speaking there, it's because Chris Bro, who was newly elected as the SREC rep for District 3, which is where I live, he had gotten voted in at that meeting to fill a vacancy left by David Covey, who's primarying Dave Phelan. And as soon as he was voted in, he had a family obligation. He put me in as a proxy. And so that's why I got an opportunity to speak at that meeting, because Chris Bro, by the way, thank you, Chris, gave me an opportunity to proxy for him and sit in on some of the other business as well. Which, by the way, I got to tell you, their little voting system, their little electronic voting system was very glitchy. I have absolutely no clue what some of those other votes might have been, because half the time you were having to push buttons to try to get it to work. It was jacked up. They got 61 of them. They could roll call that thing with a sheet, right? But instead they didn't, and God only knows what happened. Okay, before I get to some of these email ones, hey, let me tackle that, right? So because there's been so much information flying around that this is somehow some sort of final TEXIT vote and whatever, we obviously are getting a ton of questions about normal sort of TEXIT things that we address all the time. So I'm going to just kind of handle this in a blanket fashion without calling out any specifics, but let's just, I got a bunch about veterans benefits, about Social Security, about the military, about the borders. I mean, I got a lot of those. Okay. So for those of you that sent questions like that in, I'm going to tell you, you need to head over to texitnow.org. If you go to texitnow.org, it will take you to a place, and I was looking to see if I have a slide for it. I don't. But if you go over there, you will see answers to the most asked questions about independence, including the Social Security question, the military question, the currency question. I mean, all of those questions, right? And those are, and don't think that I'm sliding you in the least, because I am not. But those are questions that you can imagine we get all the time. I talk about it in my book, TEXIT, Why and How Texas Will Leave the Union. There it is up there. You can get a copy of that in the TNM store, or you can go to Amazon. I don't care. But if you want just the straight answers and don't want the book or any of the fluff, it's all free. Go to texitnow.org. Okay. Okay, here's a great one. Janice says this. She says, would you please say more about how people in other states can help? I'm in ridiculously discouraging blue state Pennsylvania and far away from Texas, but I feel TEXIT is the way forward, and red states will follow Texas's lead. I volunteered on the TNM website for things like door-to-door work, texting, data gathering, but I think it won't be easy here. So she says, if you could flesh out the plan a bit, that will help. So this is Janice in Pennsylvania. First of all, Janice, thank you very much. Look, my advice to other people in other states that want to help, and you can imagine, we hear that a good bit because people are looking to Texas to lead the way by asserting our independence. Politicians love to say, I believe that Texas should lead and not leave. It's like, guys, really? I mean, that is just, it's so weak. So weak. But we too believe that Texas should lead by standing up for our independence, right? You set a leadership example by doing leadership things, not essentially just bowing and scraping at the feet of the federal government and moaning and groaning and whinging and complaining when they do something bad, but literally never taking the one step that fixes the problem, right? That's not leadership. That is weakness. That is putting the aforementioned salt and pepper on the spoonful of crap that they're jamming in our mouths every single solitary day. Okay. So that being said, you can imagine we get contacted from people from all different states. And so look, there are a few things, right? You can volunteer. There are volunteer things that you can help with in the TNM. Obviously, block walking, probably not going to be one of them. But being volunteering to become a member of our member success team, where you help onboard members and welcome them to the organization, making a contribution, sharing our information on social media or with people that you may know in this area. There's all kinds of ways. But I will tell you, when the question of independence comes up and you live in another state, there are going to be discussions there too. And something that it would be extraordinarily helpful for people that live in other states is to start having this conversation. What do you think our state should do when Texas makes the decision to leave? Start having that conversation in your state. And I'm going to tell you something. I think you will be surprised. Okay. Okay, Joyce says, can someone other than Kyle Biederman bring the resolution to the legislature? She says, I spoke to my representative and he said Mr. B is not liked by his peers, which makes the other reps dismiss his attempts. You know, I mean, I've never been one to excuse people from doing the right thing because the right thing was posited by someone that they had a personal disagreement with. If it's the right thing, it's the right thing, right? But that being said, you know, you go back, Kyle Biederman wasn't the only name on that bill. We love Kyle. Kyle goes out and he fights the hard fights. He says the things that these guys are a lot of times lack the courage to say and file bills that they won't. But remember, Kyle wasn't the only person on that bill when he filed it 2 sessions ago. The joint author on that bill was chairman of the House Homeland Security Committee, James White. And you had other representatives that signed on to it. So, you know, I suspect if we go through this process, we get TEXIT on the ballot, we get a whole new crop. I would suggest going to taketexasback.com and looking at that directory of people that are running for those House seats, and you know, pick your poison, pick your favorite person on there, you know, help get them across the finish line, because TEXIT on the ballot, the odds that they get to cross the finish line too go up considerably. Okay, okay, that's military. Covered that. Covered Eric's. Ned asks, how will TEXIT change the government that is in place? And how will this not happen without war? Ned, I would love to get into the answer for that, but we actually have that answered on texitnow.org as well. Both of those, and in fact, there are some videos on our YouTube channel in the TEXIT 101 section that deal specifically with those issues. Borders and immigration. Greg asks, what do you propose to defend our Texas borders and to control immigration? This is Greg in Decatur. Hey, Greg in Decatur, you got a great candidate running up there. But here's the answer to your question. And I talk about this a lot. Go look at any of my interviews. People talk about it. There are some things that Texas should be doing this side of independence to secure our border and do something about sane immigration. But the only way we will ever get to actually secure our border and come up with a sensible immigration policy is by becoming a self-governing independent nation. That's what all self-governing independent nations around the world, it's one of the things they get to decide for themselves. How do we secure our border? What immigration policy do we set? So that's the thing. So we could talk all day about what that could look like, but until we get our independence, it's all just academic. Okay, this is from Bill, and I think this is a good question. This is lengthy. He says, Daniel, in your Saturday address to SREC members this past weekend, you quite correctly quoted Professor Matt Kortrup in noting the extraordinary interest that separatist referendums produce. Yet, in my interview with Professor Q, which your TEXIT colleagues very kindly recommended, he noted a critical caveat. Successful national separatist referendums are always bipartisan. In your remarks to the SREC, you accused Democrats of electoral skullduggery and the cancel culture that Republicans are also guilty of, regarding everything from critical race theory to Bud Light. How does this fit in with the long-range strategy of TEXIT in the general ballot referendum process? And this is Bill from Waco. Bill, thank you for this question, because it was important for me to make that distinction earlier about the bipartisan nature of this issue. The thing to remember specifically about the comments in the discussion at the SREC was that there had been a lot of discussion about a lot of other issues prior to my remarks, okay? And particularly the fact that the State Democratic Executive Committee here in Texas was meeting on that very same day, okay? And some of the things that they had been saying, some of the things that they had been doing, and frankly, some of the comments that I heard there about the party apparatus. And that's why you heard me refer to them as that party across the street, because literally they were in the same town on the same day, essentially doing the same thing. So, that the idea there lacks some context, but I've been very clear about this issue. And I mentioned it earlier that, one of the reasons that in 2015, we made the run at the Republican Party was A, this had never been done by anyone. B, it had never been done by us. And so you have to make decisions about where you concentrate your resources, right? It was a time management thing. We're being good stewards. And so, you go after the dominant political party. And we had, as I said at the time in 2014, we had that 2014 poll that came out that showed a majority in the Republican Party, but only 35% of Democrats. So we went where we felt that we had the support. Now it's a bit of a different story, okay? And I know specifically what you're referring to about Dr. Kortrup, and he is right. The independence issue is what I refer to as transpartisan, okay, in the sense that it transcends these normal partisan divides. And I had a conversation, oddly enough, with an SREC, one of the committee members over the weekend about this, is that it sits above the normal partisan divide, because when you think about the harms that are caused by our continued relationship with the federal system, that hammer hits everybody, regardless of political affiliation. Inflation and inflationary, monetary policy does not ask you how you voted in the last election before they ring up your grocery bill or checking it at the gas pump. And cancel culture is real on both sides. I mean, we've seen it, but obviously it is a bit rampant by the party in power right now. So understand that what you're seeing of that speech has got some context to it that may not have been clear in those remarks. But he is right. Look, I've run as a Republican twice. I've voted Republican my entire life. So, and I was there representing a Republican committee member. So, understand that discussion was for those folks, but it's not anything that I haven't said before, but it was put in a way to help them understand based off of the context of everything that had happened over the weekend. That being said, to prove the point, we know that the Survey USA poll, and if you go look on the website for the article, you will see the results. But the Survey USA poll from last summer showed, a supermajority of Republicans support this issue, but also 54% of Democrats and 52% of independent voters. So we know that the issue itself transcends these partisan divides. But to get to that ultimate vote, this is the step that we've got to take. And then you'll see it. Okay. All right. Let me get back over here to the live stream. And a reminder for those of you just joining us, drop your questions in chat or via email, and I will get to them. Ricky to the tick. Okay. Let's see what we got here. Someone asked, what is your opinion of Matt Rinaldi? I don't really know Matt that well. He's always been, the interactions that we had with him in the legislature, he was not particularly open to our issue. But he's never been adversarial. He's never been a jerk. He's always been courteous. Had a conversation with him on Thursday to give him a heads up that we had hit the petition threshold, and It's very, very cordial. I mean, beyond that, I don't know if if you're asking for an opinion about his, as chairman, as representative. I mean, I don't know. So, but that's just my general impression. He was quite courteous. Okay, let's get to see if I can find somebody here with a question. I'm sorry that I have to scroll through these, but this is just the way that it is. Man, you guys have been super chatty tonight. Here we go. We had a guy running for Congress, got signatures in one weekend, hit up all the bars in the county. Creative. So you got to love that. I mean, our folks just tore it up. Oh, and that reminds me, I just saw something in there. For those of you who want to know how the SREC voted, pictures were taken, and we know where everyone was sitting. So I'm pretty sure there'll be a list compiled at some point. I've seen a lot of questions about people wanting to know if we're going to do like a big deal, have people come in. I don't know yet for the petition handoff, and honestly, given how desperate some of these opposers are to us turning it in, one of the reasons that we're running this operation to prepare the petitions in multiple locations, might be better for all of us if they don't know when we're going to be there. Just throwing that out there. Okay. Yeah, and here's an interesting comment. It says the RPT doesn't have any money. I watched the financial report, and that was one of the things that they gave out there. They talked about the financial report, and it's like I said, I don't want to cost the Republican Party a bunch of money. It doesn't have to. It's one of the reasons that we did what we did and tried to get the SREC to pass it. I mean, there's no need to fight it. Just let the people vote. Hey, Zeus Marimba. Yeah, I mean, look at this. Trish wants to know, what is the main reason people oppose this? It is beyond me. I mean, I can't. And I'll tell you, it's because I can't rationalize people acting against their best interests or the best interests of their families or future generations. I don't understand it. They will tell you a lot, that they will say a lot without really saying anything meaningful. They will call it treason. They will call it un-American. They say, I don't want to abandon people in other states, or I've lived my entire life under that flag. And they say these things, but there's never any rational opposition to it. As a matter of fact, one of the people who got up, who is an SREC member now, is a former congressman, and he got up and he gave this spiel about serving in the military. And I mean, I could feel it, but and he sort of gave that as his reason, and he called this borderline treasonous. But the interesting thing about it was he had zero arguments against it, right? He had no arguments about why we shouldn't vote on it, why we shouldn't be allowed to vote on it. They almost, and I'll tell you this, it's just a personal observation. And I said this a while ago, but I just want to bring this point home. When people oppose it, they either do so out of a lack of knowledge. They don't understand how it works, right? So they have an objection that is rooted in a piece of misinformation. Social Security is one of the biggest ones, right? The opposition, who doesn't want this to happen, who are operating to line their own pockets because of the relationship with the federal government or whatever, they love to say that TEXIT means that you lose your Social Security, grandma's going to die in a ditch, right? But that's oddly enough not what federal law says. Federal law says you can collect your federal pension benefits no matter where you live. So I think that they do this. So the people that lack the knowledge, they don't know that that's not a lie, right? They hear that and they go, ooh, and they get scared by it, and they don't realize that it's just not true. So it's for some, it's a lack of knowledge, but for others, they're just, they're they're just not there. You know, they're either getting something from the existing arrangement, the status quo, or they're just malevolent. I just don't. I don't even know any other way to put it. You know, I look forward to having these debates, and while they always want us to justify why TEXIT, it's important for us to reverse that and go, great, list off the reasons that we should stay. I get nostalgia, right? I get sentimentality. I understand those, but tell me right here and right now, knowing everything you know about the federal government, why stay? I mean, what is sexy about staying? What is smart about staying? Is it, you know, the $30+ trillion spiraling toward $40 trillion of debt? Is the fact we've got a massive invasion on our southern border and you've got the border effectively controlled by drug cartels? I mean, is that the selling point? Is it the fact that, you know, inflation is out of control and they tax about 40% of your pay? I mean, what is sexy about any of that? You know, don't let the debate become about you having to sell TEXIT to them. Let the debate be them selling staying to everybody else. And they just simply can't do it. They just can't do it. Yeah. All right. So let me get in here real quick. I'm over an hour, but I'm not going to be like the whole time, I promise. All right. There we go. Someone asked, are the SREC minutes available? Perhaps. I am not entirely sure. Susie says, so glad Kyle put his hat back in the ring. You and me both. That was a great phone call. Okay. Oh, yeah. And that's a reminder. Cheryl says, come see us in Bryan College Station on Thursday evening. I'm going to be speaking. It's going to be my first time to speak. Honestly, this may be my last speaking engagement of the year. I don't know that for a fact, but I think it may be. But I am going to be in College Station at Cooper's Barbecue Thursday night at 6:30 p.m. You can find the event on the TNM website. Be sure to RSVP, but I'll be there. And so this could be your first chance to hear from me after, you know, I guess, after we announce that we crossed the threshold, but obviously before the turn-in. And it'll probably be your last opportunity to see me speaking live before the end of the year. So if you're within driving distance of College Station, would love to see you. Terry Lee Nichols says, I wish it would happen in my lifetime, period. You and me both. I mean, it's one of the reasons that we work so hard. I mean, we work tirelessly to make this happen. This is not a hobby for us. It's not a vocation because it doesn't pay, but it's not a hobby either. You know, you march not knowing whether you are going to win or not, but always with the optimism, always with the goal of winning. And you take whatever arrows, you pay whatever price, because at the end of it, when you win, it's worth it, right? I mean, what cost? I mean, what would cause someone to give up their self-government? I mean, what do you have to pay someone to give up their rights, and particularly their right of self-government? What do you have to pay them? Some people, that you don't have to pay them anything. They just give it up because they don't like the idea of having self-government, because self-government means personal responsibility. And let's be honest, there are a lot of people out there that are just not real keen on the idea of self-responsibility. So, okay, let's see what we got here. See if we got anything else. Someone said, did we get enough signatures for the Democrat primary? We did not, but we got a lot. Not enough to obviously get it on the ballot. Otherwise, would have been a whole other conversation last weekend, as we would have had to split our time between two. But I'm going to tell you, we came closer than anyone probably thought we would. Yeah. That's going to be a fun conversation when we tally all of that up and announce. Some people could find it quite shocking, but I mean, look, we launched it in both. We launched petition campaigns for both Republican and Democrat. People said you will never get a single Democrat petition submitted, and boy, we knew they were wrong, and they were. David Lee. Hello, David Lee. He says, don't forget TNM affinity groups, especially crypto enthusiasts. Yeah, I would encourage people to go over to the TNM website, tnm.me, click on campaigns, and you'll see a list of all of our currently running campaigns and different affinity groups, like for crypto enthusiasts, homeschoolers, veterans, techies. I mean, you got a bunch of those over there. So go check it out. Okay, let me see if I can find one more question. Let's see who's going to get in here at the tail end. All right, yeah, Katie says everyone I talk to loves Kyle. Well, it's true. I mean, his colleagues are a different story, but the reason being is, I mean, they have an accountability issue in the Texas House, and Kyle becomes a measuring stick. This is what Cheryl said. Kyle's popular with the people, not the politicians. So he gets my support. Yeah. I mean, that's just the way that it is. All right. Let me see if I can find just a couple more, and then we're going to wrap it up for tonight. Boom. SREC has its hearings on the GOP's YouTube channel, right? That is correct. They have a live stream of those whole meetings. Okay. All right, guys. I think we've cleared it out. Interesting. Okay. Have any of the Texas First Pledge folks got Abbott's endorsement yet? Great question. I don't know the answer to that right off the top of my head. But I'm going to, as soon as this is over with, I'm going to go check. Maybe if Sam Kemp is in here somewhere, maybe he could take a look at that. They've been tracking all the candidate filings, and he probably has a better idea. Okay, this is an interesting one. Ralph asks, he says, do you have any idea as to how many state senators we can count on to vote for the independence referendum? I can't tell you how many we can count on, because as anyone who watched Paul and Nate and the other volunteers work the SREC, they can tell you one thing. What they tell you means nothing until they vote. We had one of the SREC members sign a paper pledge to vote for putting this resolution in their package, right? This ballot proposition. And when the time came, did not vote for it, broke her pledge. Now, I will also say this, I'm not going to call out the name, but this same person actually, before they were on the SREC, signed the Texas First Pledge and went in, I don't know, 2 weeks later, threw a complete and total hissy fit and wanted her name off the pledge. So for some people, your word doesn't mean anything, right? So that being said, Ralph, how many state senators can we count on? I will tell you that there have been many that have softened to this position. As a matter of fact, there is probably a clip circulating around somewhere of Bob Hall talking to the Resolutions Committee before their meeting on Friday and mentioning the word TEXIT 3 separate times. Not saying that he is on board with us, but I'm saying you probably get a hint from that. Okay. All right. One more bite at the apple. All right. There you go. There's one answer. Senator Creighton is open to discussing TEXIT further. Absolutely. We've had conversations with him before. All right, folks. It is about that time, right? You guys have thrown all the questions at me. I want to remind every one of you that are on social media, anytime, help us find one another. Anytime you're posting on social media, particularly social media that allows you to use hashtags, use hashtag TEXIT, and let's connect up with one another. Additionally, and you perhaps have seen that, if you have not already pledged your vote of support, if you have not already pledged your vote for when this goes on the ballot, head to tnm.me/vote. Do that now. And as always, we're going to need volunteers because this goes on the ballot. We will be shifting gears to the Get Out the Vote campaign, which means it is going to be time for all those standard things. So that you think about the number of volunteers we had working the petition campaign, we're going to need way, way more than that. So head over to tnm.me/volunteer right now. And remember, we talked about this. You don't have to do the run for office because the filing window is about to close, but I would encourage you, if you do not have a Texas first candidate running in a race in your district, town, whatever it is, head over to taketexasback.com and run for office. Yeah, I mean, you'll go there, but go look, see who signed the pledge. All right. Oh, yeah. And one more thing, I'd be in trouble. Remember, I said that we may be headed toward litigation on this petition. Head over to defendtexit.com right now. Drop something into the our legal fund. Would be very welcome and very helpful. I'll tell you, I'm excited. I think we obviously have the requisite number of signatures plus a whole lot more. I don't know. I would hope that Matt Rinaldi and the Republican Party don't try to fight this because no one's ever done it before. I really let's just put it on the ballot. Let's just get this over with. I would hope that they would not take this to court, but who knows, right? You just never know. So you have to fight these things until you win. Okay, my friends, you know what that means. It is time to wrap this bad boy up. I want to thank you guys so much. We've got a lot talked about tonight. Hopefully we were able to give a lot of context for people that are brand new to this issue. Hopefully we were able to drive you to links and resources and places where you can get answers that you couldn't get on here tonight because of time. I mean, I could stay on here for hours answering all the standard questions, but if I could point you to a place where you can get those answers, then it's just better to do it on your own, right? To get it on your own time. We've provided it for you and tried to make it as convenient as possible. You know, we talked about what to expect over the next days and weeks, and just get ready. I mean, can you imagine what a momentous occasion this will be when you're able to go to the polls in March and have that TEXIT question on the ballot? I mean, that's just it's an amazing thing. It's an accomplishment. It's history making for a lot of different reasons, but more than that, it helps springboard us to that next step, to that, not just winning that vote in March, but getting pro-TEXIT candidates in the legislature that will get the Texas Independence Referendum Act across the finish line to elevate this issue so that the media, the mainstream media, cannot ignore it anymore. Given the polling that we've got on this issue, it should be in the news every single solitary day. People should be talking about it. We should never have to hear from people, wow, this is the first I'm hearing about this. Where have you been my whole life? We shouldn't. And you know, this becomes a way for us to cure a lot of that. So I just want to take this final opportunity to thank every single one of you. Every one of you who have signed the petition, which, by the way, if you have not, you get over there now, like right now. Now, don't wait any longer. Go now. get it done. But I do want to thank all of you. I will say that it is an amazing experience to be part of such a family of Texians that are so committed to this thing that no matter what happens, if it's if the opposition were to knock us on our butt, we just get ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and go at them one more time. I don't know that they have made the argument or the person that can break the spirit of the Texian people yet. I don't think that person exists. I don't think that person ever will exist. And this petition campaign is a testament to it, because God knows it has been a slog every step of the way. But here we are, one step closer to seeing a vote on Texas independence, and I'm here for it. So that said, my friends, I will leave you with the words that I leave you with every single time we're together. They're the words of Sam Houston when he said that Texas will again lift its head and stand among the nations. I believe that time is now, and the question is, will you stand with her? Good night, everyone.
If you feel you've no real voice, and at the polls there's no good choice, and the best is a lesser evil, just who? And it is time for a real change. Instead of voting more of the same, only one solution restores the power of you. When Texan rights have been impaired, and it's gone on for many years, there's only one way left to correct it. You know the Texans are the best to decide the future of Texas, so pledge your vote today for Texas. July the 4th, we celebrate an exit of the United States from a British Empire that denied them representation. Yeah, and history repeats, they say. Britain's past became their fate when a Brexit vote restored Britain's status as a nation. When the Constitution is ignored, state sovereignty thrown overboard, and all attempts to restore it have been rejected. You know the Texans are the best to decide the future of Texas, so pledge your vote today for Texas. So high, no limits seem to apply. Is this the future we want for our Lone Star? What if tax dollars stayed in our state and Texans had the final say? Well, that's a future I'd be happy to vote for. You see corruption in D.C. or want a real tax decrease, there's only one solution left, you guessed it. You know the Texans are the best to decide the future of Texas, so pledge your vote today for Texas. Are you tired of a government that acts so reckless? You know the Texans are the best to decide the future of Texas, so pledge your vote today for Texas. Do you love this Lone Star state? Have countless reasons why it's great. Perhaps you believe that God blessed it. You know the Texans are the best to decide the future of Texas. Go pledge your vote today for Texas. Sign up at Texas Nationalist